guys, welcome to the Chelsea Skidmore Show. I'm here today with my guest, comedian, actor, director, writer, David Wain.
Hi.
How's it going?
Hi, Chelsea. It's a pleasure to be here in the basement of the Comedy Store.
Yeah, this is our new podcast studio. We've had it for a couple months now.
It's a legendary place that I realize I've lived in LA now for over 5 years, and I can't remember the last time I was here.
It's a lot of fun. Do you go to UCB a lot?
More than here, but I have 2 kids, and I just don't go out that much at all.
Going out isn't even fun, though.
When I go out to comedy, though, because I do it so rarely, I do usually enjoy it. But when I used to go a little more often, I hated it because most comedians are terrible.
Stand-up.
And I would say most everything is terrible, but then the good stuff is amazing.
Are you like a harsh judge?
I don't know that I'm a harsh judge. I just feel like that's just the nature of something like comedy that a lot of people want to get into.
Yeah.
And only some of them are good.
Even more so today.
Oh, way more so than when I was in my 20s, say.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's a lot of funny people too, obviously.
Oh, so many. Incredible.
Yeah.
And of course I don't know because I'm not in the scene, so who am I to judge?
I'll tell you some people when we're finished that
I
you can check
appreciate
out if
it.
you want. So yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. Me and all my friends, we love everything you've made. You've been such
Thank you.
Yeah, you've been such a huge inspiration to definitely my generation. We quote all your movies.
Reading between the lines, you're super old.
Well, I don't want to be a dick by saying that, but I mean, like, when I was in high school, we loved Wet Hot American Summer. We still quote it. And I don't know, I feel like is most of your fan base generally around my age?
I don't know. I mean, I really do love that a lot of the stuff I've worked on has young fans. That makes me feel like something's good happening.
Yeah.
And I loved, I think about the things that I watched and was a fan of when I was younger, and to be part of that continuum is pretty awesome, yeah.
Yeah. What was some of the stuff that inspired you?
Well, I mean, I was pretty obsessed with Woody Allen movies growing up, and also Steve Martin specials.
I almost wore a Woody Allen shirt today.
There you go. He's been tainted by history a little bit, but I think, I studied his movies over and over and over, and just loved watching them. And same with all the Steve Martin TV specials, was like on our Betamax. I just watched them on a loop, and I just loved that stuff. So those were the big tent poles for me growing up. But I also loved SCTV and SNL, and I loved all the movies, Caddyshack and so on.
Oh yeah, and then so you just directed. I want to pronounce it: A Stupid and Futile or Futile. Gesture?
A futile and stupid gesture.
Okay. A stupid and futile gesture, which was super funny. I love that.
Thank you. This was the story of the National Lampoon, which was the magazine in the 70s, for people who don't know, that gave rise to the group of people that then went on to be the core of Saturday Night Live and a bunch of other things.
Yeah, and I feel like I heard that it took a really long time to compile everything together and make.
To make this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like an 8-year process.
So how do you not lose steam on something when it's been 8 years? How do you stay excited about something? This
one in particular, it did lose steam many different points along the way. But truthfully, it was the energy of the producer, who is also my manager, Peter Principato, who kind of kept the train running or kept picking it up when we couldn't get financing or when certain schedules didn't line up. And we just kept moving. And the writers, Colton and Abood, kept researching and writing. And frankly, I was sort of like, let me know.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of trying to live my life. But when it finally came together, it came together kind of fast, and we had to jump into it big time, and it was super fun and a blast.
How long did you shoot it for?
The shoot was probably, I don't know, 20 some days, 30, I forget exactly. Maybe
Isn't
around.
that crazy? Like waiting 8 years to do something and then it's over in 3 weeks?
Well, once the clock's ticking and they're like, go, 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 then suddenly there's no time to do anything, and every day is a ticking clock.
Yeah. Watching that, I'm so fascinated by Harvard and secret society. I mean, not that the Lampoon is a secret society, but it kind of is.
It's got a lot of secrets and a lot of ritual, and it's very male. It was very male. I think now these days it's not at all.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a white male thing, and one of the challenges of the movie was to try to tell the story in a truthful way, but with an understanding that a lot of what was happening then just doesn't fly today in the same way, or it has a different lens. And it's an interesting topic. It was a sense of humor and a sensibility that came very entirely from a white male point of view. We didn't want to pretend that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
But we wanted to tell the story.
Yeah.
And so it was an interesting challenge.
Yeah, that was great. And then you were just on the road doing wet hot stuff?
Well, I went just to do a fundraiser to raise money for a candidate for Congress in Iowa. We're trying to get the blue wave going.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I remember, I think I saw it on your Instagram. It looked like you were in a couple different, like doing live readings and stuff.
It was really one. It was.
Oh.
I just did one fundraiser live reading.
Oh. I thought I saw one at UCB and then one in another state.
So then I'm just so busy with interesting things that it's hard to keep track. That was actually just a couple weeks ago. We have a brand new book out, which is an annotated screenplay of Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah.
And so if you like that movie, you can get this book, and it's the original shooting draft with tons of little stories and tidbits and photos and documents and stuff. So if you're a fan of the movie, that's the book to get. And we were doing like a little event, and I got to play in the Wet Hot band.
Oh, that's
we
fun.
did a bunch of songs, and I'm a frustrated musician. So.
What do you mean? Like you want to play,
Well, I'm a hobbyist drummer and piano player and guitar player, and I just think of myself as a rock star, even though I'm not that great.
You're not? That's so funny.
And it's not what I do for a living.
When I was in 5th grade, I tried to play the drums, and like you play an instrument in school, and then my teacher told me to just stop because that was horrible.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that horrible?
Was your teacher terrible, or were you just that horrible?
I don't know. It's like, how horrible could I have been? I was only in 5th grade. I just had a drum pad.
I think that's absurd.
I know. I never forgot it. I'm still.
Do you not play an instrument at all?
No, but I don't really think I'm so musically inclined.
It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
But I pick up millions of little hobbies all the time. I just, I can't stop.
Really? What else?
I do playing those instruments. I do magic pretty seriously. I just joined the Magic Castle.
I just went there for the first time.
It's pretty fun, right?
It was. I wanted to stay longer. We just saw one show downstairs in one of the big rooms. It was the one with the guy and his wife, and they have their 2 daughters.
Okay.
Have you seen them?
No.
They're very Vegas-y, and it's so funny, like their showmanship. Like, I don't want to say it's hacky, because it's almost like they're in on, you know what?
Yeah. Well, there's a wide range. There's so many magicians, more than I ever would have imagined around. And so if you go to a place like Magic Castle, you're going to see a very wide range of bad to good and different styles and different sensibilities. Yeah,
and the guy who works in the bar downstairs, who's kind of like...
Yeah, he's incredible.
Everyone's like with the Rubik's Cube behind his back.
Oh, I don't know if it's the same guy that I'm thinking of.
But he's kind of like, I could see him being like the heartthrob of the magicians.
Right.
I love that idea.
It's a whole little micro community of also mostly white men, unfortunately, but that's also slowly changing.
So you joined it as a member who goes there all the time?
Yeah, well, it's a private club.
Okay.
And to be a magician member, you actually have to audition and go through this whole interview process.
Oh.
And it was much more difficult than I imagined.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of questions did they ask?
They ask, like, why are you interested? And they kind of just want to assess that you're actually a
diehard.
Not that you make your living doing it, but that you really are a magician, and that you're not just like, oh, I want to join this club.
Are they like, come with 3 tricks?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what did you do?
I did. I tried to do some things that I know how to do that involve some pretty difficult sleights that not everybody knows how to do. But of course, I was nervous and I screwed them up.
You did?
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know what else makes you nervous besides performing the perfect magic trick.
Well, that's a great question. I sometimes get nervous in certain public speaking arenas that aren't the ones that I'm familiar with, or but then again, less and less so as I grow. I remember I was about 10 years ago, I got a random offer to do a commencement speech at a community college in rural Pennsylvania.
That you didn't go to?
And I think I was probably their 9th choice. No, yeah, I have nothing to do with this place.
Don't people usually go to the college that they give the speech at?
No, or sometimes it's they're being a celebrity.
Yeah.
But I'm not a celebrity, but I think they probably went to...
I would consider you a celebrity.
Well, I think they probably went to 5 actual celebrities. Then they went down, and then someone was like, how about this guy who's like directed in some movies? And they were like, fine, and so I don't know what it was, but basically, because I don't even have an agent for that sort of thing, but this agent called me and was like, do you want to do this one job? And so I had to write up a speech for college. I just didn't know what to say, so I'm like, I tried some stories out. but it was in a giant cavernous, like indoor stadium type situation. There's these thousands of people there that have no clue who I am, don't care. And I get up and they're like, and now here's the commencement speech from David Wain. And you could feel this wave of like, who, what, you know.
But do you think part of that is just you?
No.
Because I
think if I was an amazing speaker and I had it it wouldn't matter. I think that if I got up there and like, I could have easily grabbed him maybe. But my speech was ultimately kind of a generic, like, you know, follow your dreams kind of speech.
That's what they want.
Yeah, well, that's I think what the administration wanted anyway. But I gave it, and I was just nervous. To answer your question, I was nervous and kind of shuffling, and it was a bit of an embarrassment.
The whole celebrity commencement, like how they all get shared. I've been seeing these Will Smith videos on YouTube where
really?
They just put like some kind of like beat in the background, and he's just like pacing around, like giving motivational advice. I just think that's so funny.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so the public speaking, and okay, so you know, director, writer, actor, you play so many different roles. Which one's the one that you feel most comfortable in?
Well, I think of them as different parts of the same job, and that's what I like. I enjoy working on something from beginning to end and being involved in all aspects of it. That gives me the most satisfaction.
Yeah.
So if I'm writing something and directing it and acting in it, it makes me happy. I certainly probably have had more real experience directing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've definitely much less so acting, but I've done in total over the years actually quite a bit of acting, but definitely is not where I've made my living much. And but writing and directing and producing really do feel like all arms of the same animal.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm still learning very early stages of all of them.
I'm so glad you had the halls. We're sucking on cough drops right now. So.
She means that literally.
As opposed to.
Well, in my day, sucking on cough drops meant sucking each other's dicks.
Really?
No.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, so you were in the original Wet Hot, but then, right?
Well, I was in one scene and I caught myself.
You were?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But you were in the first remake.
Right. We did 2 spin-offs of Wet Hot American Summer on Netflix. One was a prequel, one was a sequel.
Why weren't you in the original one?
Really, I was even less of an actor back then, and I did want to have a part in it. And we looked around in the script. We really didn't cast anyone in the movie until we wrote it.
Really?
We didn't write the roles for anybody.
Have anyone in mind
at all. So when it came down to casting, I was like, I'd love to play something. And we found this one part, which really was just one scene. And it was one funny scene. It was me and Carrie Kenny. You can see it on the DVD. But it just was not that great. And it ended up really being a pacing issue. And so we cut it out, sadly.
Yeah.
But then it gave me the chance to reinvent a character for the Netflix show.
Do you think that when you're directing something, it's hard to also act in it?
It's challenging, but I like that. It's fun to do it for me, but it can be exhausting. Like when we were doing our show Stella on Comedy Central, I was in most every shot for every episode and directing a ton of it, and that was quite exhausting.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it though. I think in some ways doing both at once lets you let go of both and let go of your inhibitions in a weird way in both sides sometimes. I mean, it has its challenges, but you also have to trust your cinematographer and your assistant director and your script supervisor more.
Yeah, because I've made like just a couple of like little short things with my friends, and you know that I've directed, and then I've tried to act in it, and I just feel like it's kind of hard to get into it because you're worried about so many other things.
It is hard, I think, but you get the muscle for it.
You get used
over
to it.
time, and it's fun to switch gears. I find it sort of an interesting challenge to really set up the shot, figure it out, watch it with a stand-in or however you're doing it, and then you're like, okay, and then when it's time for action, you really just are listening to the other person and being the character in the scene. And to me, shifting gears is part of what I enjoy in work, because I guess I gravitated towards this career in the first place out of fear of boredom or fear of repetition and routine. So it's fun to shift gears and work on a different project and come back.
Mm-hmm.
But then as I get older, I actually do find that multitasking too much, it makes me unhappy. And so I'm much happier when I'm working on one thing.
Yeah, it's funny to hear, and I don't want to be sexist, but it's funny to hear a guy say that he loves multitasking, because I do feel like it's more of a female thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I've read that like it's hard for guys to focus on. They like to focus on one thing at a time, and that girls are more likely to be all over the place doing a bunch of different things.
Interesting.
Like I can be on the phone while I'm like painting my nails and like
Right.
listening to something else, but like guys have to be like, no, are you listening to me? It's like
Well,
I'm hearing.
I find myself doing that, but if I stop and take a moment to think about it, I'm like, wouldn't I be so much happier just to do the one thing and then move on to do the next thing, and
Yeah.
it'll be a little more present, I guess.
Do you write a bunch of different things at once?
When I have to. I mean, I rarely. I spent last year actually spending a lot of time writing this one script on my own for like on spec, but mostly over the years I'm generally writing with partners or things that are in some way ordered or something, and so I just do what's necessary, I guess. But it's time management has always been a big challenge for me.
Yeah.
And now that I have kids, and it's even harder.
What's your writing process like?
Well, I've usually written with partners, and so it's often like, but each partnership I've had has been a different process. I wrote a lot of stuff over the years with Ken Marino, and we would usually just sit around together for a set amount of time and sit in front of the computer and just bang stuff out.
You wrote Wanderlust with him?
Yeah, and Role Models, and The 10, and a lot of Children's Hospital.
I love Wanderlust.
Oh, thanks.
It's so funny. I don't want to say it's underrated, but I feel like...
I think it is.
Okay, it is, right?
Well, I mean, it was
it's
a real...
so fucking funny.
It was a big bomb when it came out, and I think that it was perceived by the public because of Jennifer Aniston.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about that, and I want to bring it up in the right way, because I don't want to say that's so random, Jennifer Aniston, but I was guessing that it was a studio movie.
It was a studio movie,
okay.
It wasn't... We actually, Paul Rudd, Ken Marino and I came up with this from scratch. It wasn't based on anything.
I love his character in it.
It's so funny. He's incredible. Ken Marino's amazing. But we wrote this script, and then we asked Paul Rudd to play the part.
Yeah.
And then together the three of us talked about it, and we asked Jennifer Aniston to come and be a part of it. It wasn't like a studio
Really?
thing. Yeah. But I mean, obviously we did it with commercial concerns.
Yeah, because I don't want to. It felt like kind of random, just like out of the normal actresses that you normally work with or the type.
Well, as it happens,
but she did a great job, and it made me like her even more.
Yeah. Well, Paul had worked with her on this movie Object of My Affection before, which was like quite a long time ago, before Paul was a big star. So he had that connection, and they had the same manager, and we just thought that might be somebody interesting to bring it to. And then we brought it to Judd Apatow, and then only then did we pitch it to the studio, when we had all that together. And but as it turns out, I just think that her image in the world gave the audience a different perception of what to expect, and I think somewhere along the line it just did not. It probably might have been better off commercially, even if it had been made for a much lower budget and been more of an indie kind of thing. But who knows? But I'm very proud of it, and I'm glad people continue to discover it. In fact, there was an article today posted on GQ, an appreciation of Wanderlust.
Yeah, my mom loves it. She was so excited that I was going to talk to you today because, she loves the movie.
Your mom, who's probably like 10 years younger than me.
She's 60.
Okay, then no.
So like the scene with Paul Rudd talking in the mirror when he's getting himself like amped up to go hook up with Malin.
Yeah.
Malin. That's his name. Malin. Oh, never said it out loud. Do you just let people kind of do their thing, or do you I mean, he's so talented,
it depends
so funny.
Always depends on what it is and what the material is and who the actor is. There's no one way, but certainly in that particular scene, like the first few lines of it are what was written in the script. And it was the first day of shooting, the end of the day. We almost were like, nah, who needs this scene? It's not even important. Let's just not shoot it. But we're like, okay, let's just roll 2 cameras at once. We'll do it twice and then get out of there. And Paul just started going off. And that whole long monologue was all basically him just riffing, and it was we were trying not to ruin it.
I know. How do you guys laugh so much when you're?
Yeah.
I mean, like
all the time.
And then are you trying to like? Do you have to compose yourself? Do you ever like okay, when I'm trying not to laugh at something, when I'm, you know,
it's so hard.
I learned to go like this
With your fist?
I put my nails into my hand to like distract me, and
that's
I literally.
So funny.
I mean, like, because it.
But that's good that you're laughing so much that you have to do that.
I know. I'm wondering. Yeah. What do you guys do?
Well, I always think about when we were doing our old show, The State, on MTV. We were doing a sketch with Michael Showalter called Don Law, and it was just us shooting ourselves with our little home camera. And I was the guy shooting it. I was the DP, you know, and he was making me laugh so hard I couldn't touch the camera. I kept shaking it, and I kept making noise. And I literally couldn't handle it. So I had to just turn it on and leave the room and let him do it by himself alone because I was laughing so hard. But generally, you know, I mean, yeah, sometimes you even, I've ruined takes because of laughing, but it's just, you know, if that's the biggest problem, then you're doing good.
Yeah, but like everyone else, are you like, okay, guys, come on, like we're a professional, like we just have to get.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some of my worst experiences as an actor when I'm on set, you know, especially if I'm hired to do somebody else's thing. I'm not in charge of it at all, and I can't keep it together. But that just speaks to my lack of professionalism as an actor. It's just so hard sometimes because it's funny.
Yeah, and like, I mean, Paul Rudd is so amazing. Is he like a muse of yours? I would say. I mean, you've put him in so many things, and I feel like you've like really given him like a place to shine.
Well, I mean, I'm not the only one, but yeah,
no, totally,
I think he's incredible. I mean, I really do feel like he's one of the most talented and deeply. He's got such a deep well of skill and talent and ability that it's hard to imagine. And I've certainly never personally worked with anyone quite like Paul. And I would, you know, I did 5 features with him, and I would happily do 5 more. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I keep thinking of like when I was thinking about all the different scenes from things that I've loved that you made, and oh my God, Amy Poehler, what's the one?
They Came Together?
They Came Together. The Starbucks scene.
Yeah.
Do people talk to you about that scene a lot?
Wait, which what?
When he's like, okay, that's not a medium, that's a venti, like kind of freaking out.
Because that's actually in Role Models.
No, it's not.
No.
I want to tell you which one. I want to be right.
No, it's in Role Models. When he's ordering a coffee in Role Models with Elizabeth Banks, and he's like, no, grande is grande.
That was in that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I was sure it was in the other one.
There's a different coffee shop. There's a similar riff in Role Models where she's ordering a muffin. I mean, and They Came Together.
Okay.
Amy Poehler is ordering a muffin, and she's got a very particular way he likes to order it, and then he goes up to the counter and orders it verbatim exactly as she asked for it.
Oh.
Or something like that.
Huh. Okay. Well, anyways, that scene then in Role Models.
Yeah.
Such a funny scene, and it's like, when I saw that, I'm like, damn, like someone got that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they got there first. Not that I was like about to do it, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of the game in making anything comedy is just if you're trying to sort of follow what you've seen other people do, then you're in a losing game. And if you just try to think of what's on your mind or what feels like something that feels real to you or funny to you, then you'll hit sometimes those kind of things.
Yeah, it's cool because like even with like stand up, like you'll be like, I don't know how I would take this like daily life thing that annoys me and like put it into like, it's not right for stand up, but it's like totally right for a super funny scene to write.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, it's a lot of it's trial and error. You know, sometimes you cut something like that together and you're like, this just feels not that funny or already dated or flat or offensive or who knows what, you know. And so I think the only thing I've learned, if anything, over the years is how to lower the ratio a little bit so that you're hitting more often than not.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Meaning, like, I just feel like, I mean, I might have drifted to a different topic, but I just feel like when you're trying to create comedy, no matter how much experience you have and how much work you put into it, you're still not sure if it's going to work, joke for joke or whatever. And so over time, you try to up your batting average. But you're always, no matter what, just by experience and learning and learning from when it didn't work, and trying to keep learning. But I feel like still, no matter what, you know, I'm just preparing this big project right now, and we're writing and we're going to shoot, and then I'm sure as soon as we get to the edit room, we're going to be like, wow, that was never funny. Why did we keep that in every draft and shoot it? And, but that's just the nature of filmmaking.
Or just because it like didn't come alive the way that you thought it would in your head, sort of thing.
Yeah, but or maybe it never, maybe it was never going to, But you just sometimes you can't. There's too many factors in filmmaking, I think, to predict everything. And part of the greatness of it is the happy accidents that come where that Paul Rudd in the mirror scene you mentioned was sort of a random scene that we weren't even sure would work at all. And it turned out to be the most memorable scene in the movie. Yeah,
because that's like what instantly, I'm trying to think of like what were some of my favorite scenes or moments. And
well, a lot of people, I think Wanderlust has a lot of great stuff in it, but some people who weren't as big fans of it were like, it has a classic scene and the rest of it is whatever,
Yeah.
But you never know. You never know what's going to hit out or what actor's going to shine. You just don't know.
Do you prefer to write with someone else so you can kind of bounce those ideas back off and be like, is this funny? Or
generally I do, and I'm so used to it that when I sat down this past year to write something, I purposely decided to write something on my own because it was a personal thing and I really wanted the challenge of it, and it was really challenging for me because I'm just used to having that sounding board.
Who do you go to for notes? Do you go to someone for notes?
I don't have a specific, for this particular one, I actually had two friends of mine, neither of whom are full-time real like screenwriters, but just like people who I trust, and they just sat with me a lot, or just I bounced a lot of things off them. Just often it's not even as crucial who you're asking, it's more that you are asking and getting some response that you can then respond to, for me. And just writing it alone, it's hard for me to just have the discipline to sit down sometimes.
Yeah. Do you have to like force yourself to? Or?
Oh yeah, it's funny because I'm a hard worker and I have a lot of I've developed a lot of discipline in a lot of ways, and I would meet Ken Marino at 7 a.m. To start writing. We wrote 3 screenplays in we decided if when you do a film shoot, you usually get there at 6 or 7 in the morning and you work for 12 hours and you don't stop until it's done. And we thought, why not just write that way? You get it done so much more efficiently.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And so we've written 3 screenplays where we did that. We said, okay, we're meeting 7 a.m., bring a cup of coffee, and we're going to write until a half-hour lunch break, and then we're going to write again until 7 p.m. And that's what we're doing. And it worked really well. That's how we were Wanderlust. And but without the partner that you're accountable to, and each of us, when somebody's flagging or getting lazy or wanting to watch YouTube, the other one can be like, okay, come on, let's go. And without that, I can, just like anybody, go down the rabbit holes for hours and hours of wasting time.
And what's on that search bar in YouTube?
Oh my God. By the way, I watch so much YouTube.
Really? What do you type in when you're looking for something funny or weird?
Well, I have all my subscriptions.
Oh, and so you're a subscriber.
I'm a big subscriber.
I don't know any subscribers.
Oh my God. It's all I do. Basically, I'm just addicted to it's funny. I don't really do Twitter. I'm not that deeply into Instagram, but I like Reddit and YouTube, and I just go through my subscriptions and I'm like, oh, and there are all the things I'm interested in: magic, Rubik's Cube, history, politics, whatever, a gazillion different little weird micro topics. Music.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you guys get there at 7, you work, and then are one of you guys more motivated than the other? Or you just get into it?
It just depends. Yeah, each moment it goes back and forth, and that's just the way I worked with Ken Marino. With Michael Showalter, it was much more over the years in different ways, but we would work more separately. Like I come up with something, give it to him, he passed it back.
I don't like that.
In a vacuum, that's not my favorite way either.
Yeah.
But it was just different. You can't have a one size fit all way of working, I think, with anybody, whether it's directing an actor or anything. People are very different. And if you don't embrace that, you can get in trouble.
I'm assuming you guys kind of pretty much obviously have the same sense of humor. So it's probably pretty easy to write together. But what do you do when he writes something that you're like, it's not funny, but you want to kind of be like, okay, well, I can't be controlling.
You have to trust each other, that you have the same sensibility and that you respect each other's talent at the base, so that when one's like, I don't think so, then you don't take it personally or think that means you're not funny. And that's the key. So you have to be like, okay, and I respect that. And there must be some reason you're saying that. And maybe I'll fight back and maybe we'll debate it. But ultimately, hopefully it doesn't get nasty or
Mm-hmm.
feelings hurt because it's just about the joke. It's not about you. But it's hard. It's not always, not doesn't always work that way.
Yeah. And like, with your writing, like so many simple things are really funny. And it's kind of like, I don't know if people could just read it on the page and fully get it and be like, why is that funny? Like Wet Hot American Summer, like they're driving by in a van and throw someone out the window and keep driving.
Right.
Do you know what
well, I mean, sometimes whether it's
like just that one,
whether it's me to the co-writer or us to the world, you have to just be like, let us please try to do this. And we think it will be funny. And then hopefully somebody lets you do it. And then hopefully you're right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think some of the weirder stuff that doesn't make any, I mean, one of the things we were worried about when we were first trying to get Wet Hot American Summer financed in the late 90s was, does it come off the page at all? You know, or is anyone going to find this, get what we're going for? And the truth is that some people did. Like enough people saw on the page what we were trying to do.
And was that hard at first to kind of find your people who get it?
Yeah, very hard.
Yeah.
Because most people don't. And
Right.
still to this day, I mean, so most people see Wet Hot American Summer. I mean, truthfully, it's still a very niche taste thing. And most people would see that movie today and be like, what? You know, but there's enough people that are on board.
I hate to like put a label on it, but how would you describe your tone, sense of humor, kind of?
I don't know. It's hard. I mean, I've heard labels like it's absurdist or wall breaking. I don't know. Yeah, silly, you know, but I certainly don't work from those labels. And, you know, I just try to do what I think is funny and what makes me interested, you know, and from everything we've done, from every project I've ever done, we weren't trying to be like, let's do this style.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. But if you're in a pitch meeting and they're like, I'm having a hard time understanding the tone.
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, I just said, just think of it as like, we're really taking it seriously, but it's actually ridiculous or, you know, but I'm not good at those pitches. And so I'm not good at answering that question. And that's maybe to my detriment over the years. It's been hard for me I remember once I wanted to be represented by a manager in New York. And he said, like, what's your shtick? Like, where do you stand? Where do you fall in the world of comedians? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like really funny. Like,
well, it's so uncomfortable to talk about yourself to someone and tell them who you are, but you like have to do it in this industry, obviously.
Well, what's great about, yeah, you just hope to get enough of a body of work at some point where you can just be like, just watch this, and then you'll know what my shtick is, you know? Yeah.
So, yeah, we had talked about, I remember asking you this before, kind of just like how I guess actually we just answered it, but like if you're creating something that's like super zany and you just are like trying to get financing for it or someone to just, you know, get under it and get excited about it, how do you get people to like trust you and just...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's about finding those people that already are inclined to trust you or, you know, what's great about sometimes more often than not, we've written the thing before we get it financed, which is not always, you know, I don't think I've done as well pitching that kind of a project without a script behind it. So, for example, when we did Children's Hospital at Adult Swim, we already had the web series to show. When we did Stella at Comedy Central, we already had all these shorts we had made, which didn't required much less imagination on their parts. That you can see it. And so that has often been same thing with The State. We had already done a bunch of stuff that they could see. And I think that's how you do it.
And so you didn't have anyone cast yet from Wet Hot, and did you know any of those actors kind of, did they all?
It was a combination. I mean, part of the reason we wrote it was to come up with something with a ton of characters that all our friends could play.
And I love that, and I think you have done a really good job of kind of like creating that thing. It's like, you know, for, you know, me and all my friends, like our vision and our dream is not just to be in funny movies. It's to be in funny movies with all our friends.
Well, working with your friends is the best. And I think we realized that early on that the work gets better and it's more fun and the shorthand is great. And, you know, I was lucky enough to find this comedy troupe, The State, in my first year in college. And so we just stuck together, and that's been kind of the core group that's grown and grown, but that's the core that's carried me through 30 plus years.
Wow. And how did you guys all find each other?
Well, I had gotten to NYU a year before. Me, Ken Marino, and Todd Hollebeck, this other guy, got there 1 year, and then the rest of them came the next year. And I was in this comedy troupe called the Sterile Yak, which was founded by Mo Willems, who went on to become a famous children's book writer. And when we wanted to start, the NYU wanted us to accept new members into the group, and we didn't want to do that. And so Todd Hollebeck volunteered to leave and start like a junior squad. And so he put up flyers and got a bunch of freshmen to come and try out for this like B team, and the B team became the State.
So you were all in Tisch.
Yeah.
So you just kind of created, let's have a little comedy troupe where we make videos and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was in film school, and about half of them were in film and half in acting. But that's right. We wanted to do a sketch comedy troupe. And because we had seen this, I mean, we were part of this, I was part of, and everyone had seen this other group, the Sterile Yak, doing a similar thing. And we thought it looked fun. And we were all interested in that. And that's how we bonded.
And who came the following year?
Well, we started it the following year. Basically. So it was really my sophomore year.
It was you three, and then
basically, yeah. But Todd started the group actually without me. I stayed in the Sterile Yak in the A team for a while until the first show that the State, it was then called the New Group, did. He said, "I'm going to go start the New Group," and that became the name of the group. The members of the Sterile Yak were so kind of blown away and shamed by how good the B team was that the Sterile Yak, the main group, fell apart pretty quickly. And then I begged to be part of the B team.
And they're like, look at this.
Yeah.
Funny
and
to
then
see
basically it was pretty much within a year or two, the group that became the group forever was formed. And it was the 11 of us, 10 men and 1 woman.
The State.
Yeah.
And then MTV asked you personally to make videos for them, right?
Well, I had been interning all along and doing random work for MTV. And yeah, they were putting together this series called You Wrote It, You Watch It. And they asked me to do some little sketches and come up with some ideas, I guess. So instead of coming up with ideas, I went back to NYU with all the friends and was like, let's make a fully produced piece, which at the time was more ambitious than it would be today because there was no iPhones and no editing software, none of it. And so it was, they were impressed by not just what we did, but how fast we did it.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool that you didn't just make it about you and that you included all of your friends.
Well, I just knew it would be better. And that's kind of how I've always worked, is like, if you surround yourself with great people, you'll always do better.
Yeah. That's smart that you did learn that at an early age.
I think my dad, who was in the radio business, said to me, Class A managers surround themselves with Class A people. Class B managers surround themselves with Class C people. Something like that.
Yeah, I know. Bob Odenkirk told my husband, had a meeting with him one time, and he was like, stop trying to get famous and be in other people's stuff. Just make shit with all of your friends and you guys will all come up together. I
mean, I kind of think that's true. That's what I did.
Yeah.
But the other way could work too. There's no one way.
Right.
That's less of a sexy way to think of it.
Just, so you guys started making the videos for MTV, and then what happened from there?
Well, we ended up being hired as a whole group on the salary of one person to create these segments kind of in a vacuum for this series that was hosted by Jon Stewart called You Wrote It, You Watch It. And then on the strength of those segments, we were offered the chance to develop a pilot for our own series, which we did. And then they picked it up. And it was incredible. I mean, we were in our early 20s, and that this growing network was making a bet with us was insane.
Yeah.
And
because that was all the rage then.
Yeah. Well, it was also that we were the first show basically to do actual narrative production. They did usually the production at MTV was news pieces and random stuff like that. They didn't have shows, and so they didn't have people, acting and stuff. And so it was an adventure for all concerned. And the executives at MTV at the time were themselves in their 20s. And so it was a crazy moment.
Yeah. So you felt did you feel wow, we fucking made it already?
Kind of. Yeah. Oh, I remember just thinking, no matter what happens, this has been an insane ride. But when I'm
Wow.
25 years old, it was
Oh my
really
God.
it was quite a heady moment. Yeah. But it was fun and we had each other the whole time. So we were going to work every day with 10 other great friends and everyone kept each other kind of in check. And, it wasn't like if that kind of thing happens to a single person, that's where you get into trouble, I think.
Yeah. No, you don't have to name names, but did anyone that you came up with kind of turn a little gross and you have to check them?
Not that I can think of, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
in a huge way. But because part of the thing is, I think that sketch comedy and improv comedy breeds people who are supportive of each other in a certain way.
That's so true.
More than stand up,
It's crazy. Here everyone's kind of like every man for himself and
it's
people.
a solo operation.
Yeah.
And I can see how stand up comedy can be a super lonely, kind of screwed up thing. Yeah.
I don't think of it as that, but then when you go to like an improv class and everyone's clapping for you every 5 seconds,
right?
You're like, oh, I forgot how collaborative and friendly and supportive everyone is.
And that can be the other extreme of annoying too. But
yeah, really?
Well, I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Yeah. So then, did Wet Hot come first after all of that?
Well, The State went for a few seasons at MTV, and then we made a big move. They wanted us to stay and offered us a raise, but we were like, no, fuck you. And then
why is that after you had such, success at that time?
Why did we leave?
Yeah.
Because we thought we could do even better. And we took an offer to go to CBS.
Oh.
And we were going to do a series of specials on CBS and then end up going up against SNL.
Oh.
And that was like the big dream. But it was an ill-fated idea from the get-go, and we were never in sync with what CBS was doing at that time, which was really Murder, She Wrote, like old people stuff. And we did one special, and all sorts of stuff went down. I mean, on my website, there's a great article in Details magazine about this. But basically, one of the executives said some stuff to us that was kind of racist in giving us advice, and that got leaked to this article. And then the executive got fired, and it was like all sorts of stuff happened. Plus, nobody watched our show. And so those two together, that was the end of our CBS adventure. And then we made this book, and we tried to develop a few other things, but basically The State fell apart right around then. And all of us were trying to figure out what to do next. And we started doing our show Stella in New York as a live show. But around that time, in the late 90s, is when Michael Showalter and I started writing screenplays and putting together this Wet Hot American Summer.
How many times did you do like tons of different edits and drafts on it, or was it always kind of the same thing?
No, we really did, because we tried to get financing starting in 97 and it took 3 years. And so every time we came close, but then didn't get it going, we went back and worked on the draft more, and we had readings of it, and it was definitely benefited from having been poured over so much over years and years before we finally got to set.
Was that because of the notes too that you were getting?
Notes, and just like every time, with a comedy, every time you hear it out loud, I mean, those table reads were just incredible, because every time you hear anything out loud, you're like, oh, I have 1,000 new notes, or 1,000 things that I noticed aren't as good, and sometimes actors even improv a little in the reading, and I'll write that down. So, it was very tight, and it was good because we had no money and no time. We're shooting one camera on film, and I had no experience doing that. And so it was good.
Experience doing what?
I had basically no experience shooting anything with a crew. Like most everything I had done before that for The State and Stella was me holding the camera and just running around. So I had to say to the first AD, like, what happens? Do you say go and I say action, or how does it work? I really didn't know.
They set you up with a crew.
Well, we were with a producer, and we hired a crew, and I had some idea what was going to happen, but it was really a first for me.
Yeah.
And it was super exciting, but it was, thank God, the script was just really what we wanted it to be by the time we got set.
And then you're super involved in the casting process.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I mean, we worked with a great casting director, Susie Ferris, but we do it together, And
it, when all those people like came in for it, you're like, oh my God, they get it.
Yeah, I mean the ones that got
Mm-hmm.
it great. I mean, you see somebody like Chris Maloney who came in
Uh-huh.
and auditioned, and we're just like, oh my God, whatever he's doing, I don't even know, but get him, get him, get him,
Yeah.
and don't bring anyone else in.
Even
Um,
the kids.
yeah, the kids were, I mean, all the kids were cast locally in Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, some of them were great, and then it was a combination. Some people we just were friends of ours that we asked to do it.
Yeah.
And then some people were people we knew but wanted to see them audition, and other people we had never met before. And Bradley Cooper walked in off the
Oh,
street,
right.
and Elizabeth Banks walked in, and we'd never.
Wasn't
Neither.
that his first movie?
Yeah, and Banks.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
That is crazy. Do you still talk to Bradley Cooper?
I not much, but
Yeah.
I adore him, and he I did get to see like a year and a half ago a cut of Star is Born and
Yeah.
give him some notes, which was a real
Oh.
but he's a super impressive dude.
Yeah, I just saw that movie.
Yeah.
It was good. I liked it.
Yeah.
I have to see the originals.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I'm like, what else am I dying to ask you? I mean,
like I'm here, Chelsea, for you and for your listeners.
Thank you. What do you I'm so excited to hear what you're working on right now.
I wish I could talk about it more, but I'm not supposed to. But I'm working on a great project with 3 other main collaborators. Like the 4 of us came up with this thing, and it's going to be awesome. And I can't talk about it yet.
Movie?
I can't talk about it yet. It sucks.
What do you like more, movie or television?
They really are doing the same thing. I really do like both. I mean, it's fun. Like doing a show like when we did Children's Hospital was really fun.
So fucking funny.
I mean, each one is 11 minutes long, and it's just you don't have that much time to overthink it.
Yeah.
And same thing when we were doing the shorts with the shorter and the cheaper. Sometimes it's really fun. Or Rainy Days was a web series I did where when you just sort of like do it and then get it out the door and then move on to the next one, sometimes you get some great stuff. But then a movie has its own pleasures where you can really hone a joke. With say like Wet Hot American Summer, we come up with a joke in 1997. We shoot it in 2000. We edit it in 2001, and it's just like by the time the movie's done, you've heard that joke thousands of times, and if it's still making you laugh, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And you've got it's fun to navigate that and really take the time to hone every second of something. Do
you leave time for improv?
Yeah,
although, like specifically because you're working with so many talented people.
No, generally no. I some directors do that more than me. I like to feel like we've got it on the page figured out, and then yes, there's room for improv, but I don't leave like a space like improv this. I feel like I just like the style of take the time and figure it out beforehand, and then if you can better it on set, great.
What's your favorite thing you've worked on?
Oh God. It's hard to answer that because it's so tied to the time of my life and the experience and like what I was going through personally or whatever. And also sometimes, it was really hot or whatever. And then also each thing, just the memory of it morphs as time, memory is so malleable. But to answer that, I don't know. That's like, sort of day for day, maybe Children's Hospital was among the most fun. But I don't know. Stella was really thrilling. Wet Hot American Summer was the first of so many things, and that was fun. Doing the Netflix Wet Hot American Summer was a real blast because I just loved all the people, and doing the second one was really fun because I was living on the set, and it was a fun lifestyle.
What do you mean? Basically,
we shot the newer Wet Hot American Summers at a ranch in Malibu called Calamigos, and they have rooms there, like nice hotel rooms.
Isn't that a tequila? Is that the tequila company? Calamigos?
No.
Okay, sorry.
But so I got to live in this nice room that was like 10 feet from the main cabin of the camp. And so it was a really sort of fun couple of months.
And nice to be super local.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, my whole life in Los Angeles is about not being in my car. And so I try to bike or walk wherever I can.
What do you listen to in the car?
I watch a lot of TV.
Watch TV?
I mean, listen to it.
Wait, what? You have a TV in your car?
No, I listen on my iPhone. Because,
Okay.
like if you go to Amazon or Netflix, they have, you can set it to give audio descriptions for the visually impaired. And so I can, like right now I'm listening to Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
So it's good, right?
I like it.
I like it.
I really love Kevin Pollak in it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think it drags a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm enjoying it.
I like the costumes, but you're not seeing those.
Well, I don't watch it only in the car.
Uh-huh.
But what's nice is you're just driving and you're listening, and then they fill in all the blanks. They're like, and then she picks up, So
that's funny. I never knew you could do that.
Do you think have you seen it?
Yeah, I have.
Do you think it's accurate to what stand-up is like?
It was emotional watching it, to be honest, because of seeing, a female stand up. And I'm sure during that time, people say it wasn't, or it was loosely based on Joan Rivers.
Uh-huh.
I think it was to a degree, but it's emotional seeing even in the opening scene, on the pilot when she's doing stand up at her wedding, which was kind of random and kind of unexplained.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was emotional for me to watch, and I do think it is a male-dominated field, and it's crazy with the cursing back then, and how the cops would just come in, and some of the stuff she didn't even do, like it wasn't even that crazy to me.
Well, I think I think the humor of her stand-up feels pretty anachronistic to me. Like I don't think it was.
It was kind of, she's just talking
at all. Yeah.
Too. It's a little hacky, but it's a fun show.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. It's interesting though, and I love seeing them transform New York and all the production and VFX.
I love anything in New York.
There's a novelty to that to me. Yeah, when working in New York, like shooting, They Came Together in New York was a blast. Like that's one of my favorite things, just because it was so dumb and so fun, and I love Brooklyn and just like the whole feel, and I love the crews there.
But it's crazy shooting in New York, right? Like a lot of people on the street come over. I've heard it can be an issue for people.
It can be. I love it. I mean, it can be like I lived in New York for 26 years. I love it. I miss it. You're from there?
There's an energy. I mean,
it's an energy.
You feed off the.
And I feel like when people are shooting, most people are cool. Like most people are, they're not bugging you too much. And I don't know. I loved shooting on the streets of New York. I feel very at home there. And
who doesn't love a walk and talk in New York on the street?
Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah.
And we were doing a spoof of all that, which was fun too. We were like doing all the tropes and all the cliches of the New York rom-com.
Oh, I'd have to look back and notice.
Yeah, well, go back. Like we really were trying to,
I love that.
Take the piss out of every New York-y cliche.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of inside stuff.
Yeah, inside if you watch movies.
Okay. Sorry, getting over the cough. So editing.
Yes.
Which
all about the editing. Do a lot of this podcast today.
Really? No, I don't really like to. But like with Children's Hospital, very quick. Obviously you're like, are you just like bugging the editor, like please, just like a second off?
Well, I do a lot of it myself.
Really?
But yeah, I think I've definitely had a bit of an ADD sensibility with editing, and I like to keep it moving and dense. It's just my taste, I guess. And Children's was a great playground for that, because we would try to tell these pretty long, complicated stories and just squeeze them down so hard into these 10.5-minute chunks, and we could never be a second over. And so I like that. I like the puzzle of how efficiently can you deliver this plot point / joke / emotion without a shred of fat? I've come to appreciate that that's not the only thing to do. That sometimes a moment or a silence or things can be very powerful. But
I love silences.
Yeah, but a silence that's earned because you've kept it paced up until then is so much more powerful. Just like anything like that. That's I think rampant cursing in movies makes, when you have a really good line that has a great curse word, lose any power that it might have had. So it's all about pick and choose.
Yeah, I've learned that from a young age, kind of just like, how it's excessive cursing if you don't really need to.
Yeah.
Just like for the effect of it, it just
dilutes it. And if you do a 10-minute stand-up set and you have one great curse, it's going to kill. I don't know. What do I know?
I know. I have such a dirty mouth coming from New York. I want to excuse a lot of things on being from New York.
Yeah. Well, I think you are a New York sensibility, which to me is already puts you a step ahead of everybody else.
Do I seem like a New Yorker?
Yeah, kind of.
Do you where are you from originally?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Where do you most identify with?
New York.
Yeah, you seem like a New York kind of guy.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a New Yorker because I like worshipped Woody Allen, and I wanted to be part of the Muppets and Sesame Street and SNL and like all those things. I just fantasized being a New Yorker up until I was one at 18, and I stayed in New York until my 40s.
Wow, and then you moved out here just because?
I moved out here because I was working out here all the time, and I had a kid who was starting kindergarten, and it was just like, am I going to be away 10 months this year? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it's good that if they were in kindergarten, they start over here. Because I think moving around is traumatic for young kids, having to make a lot of new friends.
So they're kind of here, which I have mixed feelings about raising kids in LA. It's a weird place.
Yeah.
But I like it, and, I'm trying to do a good job.
What's your favorite neighborhood in New York?
Well, I lived in the West Village.
Oh, that's my dream.
Yeah. I mean, I came to NYU, and so I was in the Village. And then I just did fall in love with all of it. And I lived in maybe 20 different apartments in the East and West Village.
Yeah.
And I never lived, I don't think I ever lived above 14th or below Houston. And, I think of that as my home.
Yeah. My family lives in Chelsea, which is nice.
Oh, yeah.
But I love the West Village. It's so nice to just like walk around, and it's just like it's the dream to live on one of those shady streets with townhouses, and you just push in like a cool $10 million carriage.
To buy a house.
I know, it's so expensive. Even more, isn't it like 20?
Probably.
I don't know. Real estate
New York
prices.
Is definitely in so many ways not what it was.
I know.
And Manhattan in particular.
So expensive.
But so I don't know that I'm like dying to move back there for that reason. I think it's changed a lot. But I do love it and I miss it, and I hope to work there more.
Yeah.
I'm working on something that would take me back to Cleveland.
Oh.
And work there, which would be fun too.
What was it like growing up there?
I loved it. I mean, I grew up in a suburb that was sort of a diverse suburb called Shaker Heights. And, I don't know what you'd call it, kind of your classic normal functional family life. And
functional.
Walking to school. And I really had 3 much older sisters who I loved, and tons of friends, and swimming in the pool in the backyard. And
at a ground pool?
No, it was in the ground pool. We were the only ones in the neighborhood though, and so we had everyone in the world coming to our house every day. And
sneaking in it when you were out of town?
Oh, not even sneaking. We're just like, come on, come on.
That's good that you're friendly about it.
Well, when I was like 8 years old, me and my friends were all at the pool every day. And then my sisters, who were teenagers, and their friends were all there. And my parents, who were in their 40s, and their friends were all there. And so it was like this big, weird rager mix every day. It was kind of great.
So you grew up in a functional home.
Yeah. I mean, certainly on the surface.
I want to it's so interesting to me that some people, you're a funny person.
Thank you.
I don't want to be, I'm trying to think of like the best way to say this. Some people who seem like they grew up in a normal life in a functional home and do comedy, some of them aren't very funny. And I don't want to say you need dysfunction to be funny.
Well, the classic thing is that comedy comes from pain, and that comedians come from really bad upbringings. But it's not entirely true.
Did anything from your childhood kind of set you up for what you do?
I feel like I was the way I am, and sort of funny in the way that I am from the earliest time that I can possibly remember. And I was certainly influenced by, like I said, hearing all that Steve Martin, and just like finding things absurd and being a step out of everybody else in every way. I was like the one kid who didn't ever drink, or, I was the one kid who didn't play sports. And I was just a little different. I was a little weird, but not in any like way that was a problem.
Yeah.
But and I think, though, that the guys in the State and a lot of us had a similar thing where it wasn't coming from like a shitty childhood that we were gravitating to comedy. It was from something else.
Huh.
I don't know.
Yeah. Did you have like a video camera when you were younger and make videos of random stuff?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm 49. So when I was 10, it was like 1980. And my dad brought home this video camera from his office that was like a thing that he had in his office. It was like a massive thing that was connected to two machines. And if you wanted to get one shot off, you had to carry all the machines to the room and plug them in. It was a big thing. But I did all the time. And I used his Super 8 camera when I was a little younger than that. And I did, starting around then, just run around all the time making little videos with my friends, decades before YouTube. And I still do that.
Yeah, I like think back of when I was younger. I used to film people at the airport with a video camera. I just, film and try to just capture
That's
weird
so
stuff.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, no iPhones or anything, but for us, it was like that. It was like, we can tape stuff. And so it was like when the movie camera was invented in the early century, like just the idea of filming anything was kind of a cool novelty.
Yeah.
And so we just started doing that.
And obviously you had the whole VHS thing back then.
Yeah.
So I'm sure when people probably ask you for advice, I'm guessing you say it's so easy today. You can just put something online.
Yeah. But I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy to come up with something or to be funny, but it's certainly, the mechanics of it are certainly much easier than they were for me.
Do you go to anything specific to get inspiration? I mean, obviously writing what you know is the best sort of thing, but.
Yeah. I keep a little bit of a file, just like a list of ideas that I have that are random, that I've kept over the years. And
do you have a drawer like Woody Allen?
No, it's really just I've been digital for a long time, but so sometimes when I'm really just open brainstorming, I'll like look through that and I'll be like, oh, what about that? What about that? But it's been pretty organic in terms of like, sometimes I'll just be chatting. Like there's one new project I'm working on, and it's just something that one friend and we've been chatting about it lightly for years. And then finally we're like, yeah, let's really do this. And a lot of the main projects I've done have been outgrowths of things that have grown over years. Like Stella was an organically formed thing. Or in the case of some of the stuff I did with Ken Marino, it was more about like, okay, 7 a.m., let's think of something. And when the first day of that writing process, we usually say we have to have an outline by the end of the day. So that means you have to first have an idea.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, by lunch, we better have an idea. And so you just force yourself.
Do you kind of just like, think of like, like what's your process? Like log lines, like fragments of like locations.
I know at the State, when we did sketch ideas, people would write random titles and then put them in a hat, and then everyone takes one out and just has to write a sketch with that title. But with Ken and I, a lot of times we would just literally be like, what about something about a dog? What about blah, blah, blah?
Okay. And what about that?
And you're like, there's no science beyond that I can think of. Yeah. When I there's one thing I wrote this past year, which was like this more personal thing. And I just sat down and I actually systematically thought, like, what are themes that are really true to me and my life that I care about that I haven't seen spoken about elsewhere. And that's where that was how I started with that.
Do you think in terms of themes to start with? So it's
not
like more
usually
thoughtful.
In that way, that time I did, but sometimes it starts with a character idea. Sometimes it starts with just like a cool scene. Like there was Wanderlust started with, for me, there was one moment that I had seen in another movie that I thought was such a meaningful moment to me. And I took that one literal, like, one line exchange from that other movie and built that into Wanderlust with Ken,
What was that?
There was this movie called Together that came out in the year 2000. It was Swedish, and it was about a bunch of people trying to live in a house together, and they were having like a free sex experiment. And the guy's wife comes in and is like, guess what? I just fucked this other guy. Isn't that great? And he's like, yeah. She's like, I never had an orgasm before with you, but I did with him. Isn't that wonderful? And he's like, yeah. She's like, you're not jealous, are you? And he's like, I mean, maybe a little, but mostly I'm really happy for you. And just that little exchange was like, we have to make our own version of that's sort of centerpieces around that. And that's what Wanderlust is.
I love that. What do you use any besides like Final Draft or Microsoft Word, or any secret programs I should have?
Well, I am the guy who I have a list of software that whenever people in real life ask me this, I send them my curated, updated list of tools I use because I'm very into that stuff.
Have you heard of Scrivener?
Yeah, I use Scrivener a lot.
Oh, you do? I just heard about that on
when you're doing a longer project, Scrivener can be extremely helpful. I try to avoid Final Draft. I never use Microsoft Word.
Really?
I do any regular writing in Google Docs, which I think is far superior to anything else.
Is that because you're sharing with someone else that you're working with, or?
Yes, but also it's just better.
Really? Why?
It's just more robust. It's cleaner. It makes more sense to me.
Really?
And it's also always online and in the cloud automatically.
Okay.
And I've always hated Microsoft Word. I think it's bloated and gross, and I've just never
Really?
liked it. Yeah.
I love Microsoft Word.
Well, good.
Oh, well, I like the synonym option.
My thing is, if it works for you, great.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work for me.
But
if you haven't checked out Google Docs in a while, they do there's a lot of stuff. You can also add extensions, and then
what does that mean? Like files?
No, you can add like extra features. You can like a la carte, just be like, oh, here's this third party company that can add you this feature that if you wanted it, and it's really the things that most apps work better in the cloud now than on your laptop.
I don't even understand any of this, but I'm trying to.
But I really also don't. I write in the when I can in the Fountain screenwriting language, which is if you go to fountain.io, you'll learn about it. It's invented by this guy John August, screenwriter.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know much about him, and I heard him on another podcast.
Well, he has a great
Mark
podcast,
Maron's.
Script Notes.
I know, and I've listened to it before, but I just listened to one episode. But oh my God, he's so smart, and I just really like it. Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, he wrote Go, which
No, he's the best.
But he's like really into like script writing, whatever.
Yeah, I've always been into the tech of it and the gadgets anyway, just for the fun of it. But also, I think I've found over the years some really cool systems and technology to make writing smoother and more interesting. And I think the whole idea of software is to take all the friction away, so you're just using your creative brain.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly with editing software, and so I try to get to that point where the doing of it is meaningless. It's just the thinking of it.
What do you use instead of Final Draft?
I just write in this app called Highland, which is
I'm writing all these down.
Also, well, Highland crosses with Fountain, like the streets. And Highland is the language and Highland is the app and Fountain is the language, but it's basically a plain text screenwriting language that you can write in anything. You can write on your phone or on a computer from the 50s, you could write it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it can be read and processed by any software that recognizes Fountain. It's very platform agnostic.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't like Final Draft.
I hate it.
Why is that? I think I can't tell if this is all I know to begin with.
That said, I'm very supportive of them making it better. Like I'm in touch with Final Draft, and I'm like a beta tester for them, and I've gone in to like sit with them.
Oh wow!
Because I care. Everyone uses it, and so I want it to be better. But they've always had their priorities a little mixed up in terms of, and always been about 10 to 20 years behind on what software.
So there must be a much easier way that I'm just unaware of.
Well, go to fountain.io.
.io. Okay, that was the thing
ladies
that
and gentlemen, and you're going to learn a little bit about how I write. But for example, I did this. Anyway, it's a great way to keep it clean and clear what you're doing and not have to worry about a lot of things.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to look into that. And if you were going to give general advice to someone who wanted to be a writer or director, what would you tell them? Let's get some commencement speech highlights.
I would say one of the biggest lessons I learned earlier on was that quantity is just as important as quality. I think I see a lot of people get caught up because they're obsessed with getting this one thing written or this one project off the ground or waiting for this one thing to come through instead of just keeping moving, and keeping making stuff. And I think I learned, just great. So while you're waiting, write that next thing and work on the next thing and do another one and then shoot it. And, don't wait for somebody to say it's okay.
That's the worst part. That's what, I'm dealing with, I'll send something off and I'm waiting to hear notes and get back, and then I'm obsessing over it and I'm like, and people forget to read things.
Obsess over the new thing that you
I know.
Right
and
now.
Then I came up with it on my own. Obviously it's common sense, I'm sure, but it's so helpful to just start something else, and then you're just so fueled, and then I get so excited about the next thing. I'm like, what was that?
Well, yeah. And then, then if it comes through, I mean, like, I developed something for a couple of years with this network for a while, and I really liked it, and then it didn't go, and I was bummed, and they're like, okay, we're going to try to figure out another way to make it work. And I'm like, okay, but I was like, you have to just forget about it. It's like going on an audition.
Yeah.
You just you do your best, then you absolutely forget about it. Then if it does come through, you're like, oh, okay, now I'll deal with it. But, so that's certainly one of them. And I think, I don't know.
What about maintaining excitement when you're coming back to something that you're almost like a chick you went out with that you like had a fun date and then you kind of just played phone tag and she stopped calling?
I guess like a chick, I think you have to find the excitement again. Like you can't if you're really sick of it, maybe there's something you can make better. Like I do think that I learned that doing a lot of things, especially, like They Came Together, for example, took 13 years.
What?
We had written it originally back right after Wet Hot American Summer, and then it got rejected by a studio and then just sat on ice for 10 years. And then we always thought it was funny, and we finally pulled it out, and we got it set up at a super low budget at a Lionsgate. But then, we went through and we're like, okay, we did think it was funny, but actually 30% of it can be replaced and whatever. Then when we shot it, there was a long story of putting it away. And bottom line is, by the time we got to the end of making it, I still loved everything that was left in it.
Wow.
And everything that I didn't love, I cut.
Yeah.
And it was a lot. But I just think you have to still be excited about it, or else what are you doing?
Is it easy for you to kill your darlings?
Yeah, it kind of is more and more.
It gets easier.
Yeah, or you figure out which darlings you want to kill. Yeah, killing your darlings is great. I mean, it's just like
and then you feel so good after.
Oh my God! There's nothing more exciting than like struggling with a scene, either in writing or editing or whatever, and realizing that the answer is just to cut it.
Yeah.
To lose it.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, it's like taking a big Band-Aid off. It's so great.
And then just like something being shelved for 10 years, and then bringing it back out again because you believed in it. But it's kind of like, do you ever get kind of discouraged when people say no, 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 and you're like, well, fuck, I'll just try something else, and then you're like, no, someone will say yes. I will find that person. That search to,
I mean, when something, I've been lucky enough, and I do know a lot of it is luck. Like everything that I've put together that I really, really loved has been gotten the light of day, at least getting made, not necessarily seen, but, and They Came Together was that one thing that always gnawed at me because I'm like, that was so funny. How can we? But I mean, I've worked on some pilots that didn't go to series that I'm still kind of like, damn, that was so good. It's too bad.
Is there any way to?
No, that's the weird thing about pilots. Like once they don't get picked up, they're just done.
I can't believe how much money people spend on them too.
It's absurd.
Yeah, my friend shot, a pilot for like NBC. I think they gave him like $4 million.
And the time, the talent, all the work that goes into those things. And so it's like,
at least you have that Deadline article.
Maybe it doesn't fit on the NBC schedule this season, but maybe there's some other place or time for it. Or maybe people could just at least see it because you did it and you finished it. So like, why not put it on iTunes or something?
Yeah. Have you ever called someone and be like, can I just have it?
I mean, I've always stolen a copy of it. So anything I've done that people want to see, I can show it to them. But I've made 3 different network pilots. All of them I loved, and I would love for the public to see, but they, as far as I know, never will.
Like multicam stuff?
No, like single cam. Like I made one that was produced by Ben Stiller, starring John Goodman and Justin Bartha, about a CIA post. I made one starring Ellie Kemper, which was amazing.
I want to see all of these.
And I did one that was produced by Amy Poehler, starring Natasha Lyonne, and this amazing cast. And they just, along with zillions of others, just sit on a shelf.
Oh, that's so crazy.
I know. You'd think there would just could be a network just to have the pilots, or a streaming service.
But it's because they paid for it.
I think it's because they don't want to admit that they made something that they didn't follow through on to the public. You know
what really annoys me is that with a lot of things, it's like, you just need one person to say yes and then everyone's excited. Yeah. I hate how everyone's like that. How a lot of people can't really think for themselves, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we live in
I don't want to be negative, but
a lot of the entertainment business is fear-based, and you have to say to your boss, well, the reason I said yes was because this other thing worked before, or because this person said yes. And in a way, I kind of understand that, but the goal is to try to break through that kind of
Do you
thing.
get kind of like aggressive in that?
No, I mean, I'm not really
You're
good
not an
at,
aggressive guy. It seems like.
I'm also not good at that part of the business. I'm not really great at pitching myself or pitching my projects. And, we're at a time when, things that come from a brain of a white male are just not in vogue at the moment. And so it's, so many things that
Whose fault was that?
I guess it's my fault. But, so I'm getting the punishment for all my years of it not being that way.
So who do you let handle most of that kind of, your manager?
I mean, I have a manager and agent and lawyer and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, I pitch things when I need to.
Do you get nervous for pitches?
Not really. Yeah. I just don't like it. I don't like that's my least favorite part of the process.
Like me and my idea.
Yeah. It just feels like, you want them to be excited and just sit down and do the work on it, not try to convince you to do it in the first place. Mm-hmm. But it's a necessary evil, I understand.
Mm-hmm. Do people often try to make it into something else? And you're like, no, like it's this. Like, stop trying to put it into like commercial, mainstream. How do we make this more appeal to the...
It's true, but, sometimes those people are smart and they might be right. You just, there's no absolute science to that stuff. So I try to listen to, if I get notes from a network about something, there's usually something that they're responding to. I heard Jordan Peele say something which I liked, which is whenever he gets a note from anyone on what he's doing, he doesn't necessarily agree with it, but he doesn't want them to ever give that note again.
So he thinks about it and then he gets back to them the next day.
Well, he thinks.
I heard that.
Oh, is that what he says?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's all those tricks, but what I heard him say was like he knows the note was there's some reason why that note was made, and they might be dead wrong on what they're saying, but there's something. Like there's something that he can look at based on the note,
Yeah, being open, teachable.
Yeah, and but sometimes notes are truly stupid and completely misguided, or the worst notes are when somebody is justifying their job by giving notes when they have nothing to say. And that's where I'm really trying to be wary of, when people just want to hear themselves talk,
Yeah, and you have enough experience to kind of tell.
I try to filter that stuff out, but it's hard. And it's hard, when you get when you're working on a big project, there's a lot of layers working on it, or production companies, and you get tons and tons of notes. Just literally the time expense of reading everybody's notes and really trying to think about them in context of everything else. It's such a beast sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned a bunch of other tricks like that. What are some of those other tricks?
Like for taking notes?
Just in general. Let me know some of these tricks.
I don't know.
And we can end on that.
Well, I mean, definitely a lot of times when you get a note from a studio or something, the default thing to do is say, "Oh my God, yes, great idea, thank you," and then just don't do it.
And they don't notice that?
Well, and then if they do, you wait, you sort of take and if they're like, "Wait, remember we made that note?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, we'll do it definitely," and then you don't do it, or whatever, or then. They're like, "Oh, you caught me. Okay, now we'll do it."
You caught me.
But I try not to set up that adversarial relationship if I can, and try to actually think of it. Try to give people the benefit of the doubt to be on your team and wanting the same thing.
Yeah.
But it requires smart executives.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know anything.
Oh, okay. Anything you want to end on?
Just that it's a pleasure to speak with you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
And I hope that your audience has not gotten bored to tears.
No, I think this is stuff that people who listen to my podcast like to listen to. I'm deciding for them.
Good.
Yeah.
And if they want to find me, davidwain.com.
Great. And social media?
Instagram, Twitter, David Wain.
And we're looking for your secret project coming out soon?
Secret project will be announced soon and will come out in next year.
Awesome. So excited. Thank you so much for coming in. And guys, remember to subscribe.
Remember to subscribe.
Rate and review on iTunes.
Your iTunes reviews really help.
Yeah, they do. I keep forgetting to say that at the end of my episode, but people...
So just, if you can, take a minute and just write a little something in iTunes. We really appreciate it here on the Chelsea Skidmore show.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Have a good day. Bye.